Hello there, I'm Leisha Grabinski. Happy Earth Day. This is Blue Sky. To mark Earth Day, we are tracking the contents of your blue bin. The federal government announced a new federal plastic registry to help keep plastic out of the landfill. That announcement came today. Now, the government says less than 10% of our plastic is currently being recycled. So today, we will figure out why that number is so low by visiting a recycling facility. And we're talking to a few experts, too, about how to recycle better. If you have questions about recycling, today is your day to call us. 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. But first, here's Laura Sharpaletti with the CBC News.
Thanks, Leisha, and good afternoon. Well, a number of volunteers raced to put out a grass fire near Regina Beach yesterday. Regina Beach and Lumsden fire departments responded to the fire, as did the nearby Arm River Colony. Mike Thorley is Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Regina Beach. Thorley says volunteers, with the direction of the fire departments, helped with the fire from moving toward houses in the area.
That's where a whole lack of volunteers with manpower, equipment, and so forth, as I mentioned, came together and worked together to make sure that the fire didn't move any further.
Thorley says the fire department is still monitoring the area for any hot spots. He says that, to his knowledge, no one was hurt and no buildings were lost. No information on how the fire started has been released at this time. A Saskatoon man already in custody and charged with voyeurism is now facing new charges. Kyle Hamluck is behind bars, accused of voyeurism, intimidation, and criminal harassment. It's alleged the 35-year-old repeat offender committed the offenses between January and March of this year. Now he has 6 new voyeurism-related charges. The allegations are from last month. Hamluck has a bail hearing set for later this week. Back in Regina, the city's biggest indoor market is losing its home. The Centennial Market has been in the former Sears clearance building for nearly 8 years. Each vendor has their own stall or storefront to sell services or handcrafted goods. The building, which was built in 1918, has been deemed unsafe by the fire department, and the owner is putting it up for sale. Sandra Klein is president of the market's board. She says this puts vendors in a tough spot since they're now forced to find a new location or shut down.
It's devastating, of course. It's a place where vendors could come and show off their stuff, and it was affordable. I don't know, to get it back, I'm not sure if we ever will.
Klein says the market cannot afford to rent a building unless someone offers a similar deal. The market saw more than 25,000 visitors last year. Its final day will be the last Sunday in May. And at 12:03, it's cloudy with light rain showers and 5 degrees in Regina and mostly cloudy and 12 degrees in Saskatoon. This is CBC News. Down in the States, Donald Trump's lawyers say the criminal charges he is facing are not worth the paper they are printed on. The former U.S. president is accused of falsifying business documents to hush up his affairs. The New York court heard opening statements today after a week of jury selection. Katie Simpson has the latest.
This is a witch hunt, and it's a shame.
Donald Trump appeared frustrated as he headed into court for the start of opening arguments. Prosecutor Matthew Colangelo outlined the state's case, arguing that Trump engaged in a, quote, criminal conspiracy and cover-up by disguising hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels to keep their alleged affair secret so it wouldn't hurt his 2016 election campaign, adding, quote, it was election fraud, pure and simple. The defense, led by Todd Blanche, countered, saying, quote, President Trump is innocent and that he did not commit any crimes, and that, quote, there is nothing wrong with trying to influence an election. It's called democracy. Jurors just barely started to hear testimony from David Pecker, then the head of the tabloid The National Enquirer, for questioning about how it paid for news stories. But court broke early as a juror had a dentist appointment. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
And back in Canada, as we'll be hearing on Blue Sky today, the federal government is creating a new plastics registry. It says the tool will compel plastic producers and other companies to help monitor the life cycle of plastic. Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault made the announcement.
Every year from now on, they must declare the quantity and types of plastic they supply, how these plastics move through the economy, and how they are managed at the end of their life.
An Earth Day statement from the federal government says this new registry will improve how plastics are made, cut plastic waste, and help build green economic opportunities. Currently, less than 10% of plastics in Canada are recycled. The rest ends up in landfills or in the environment. The Governor General is in Regina today for her first official visit to Saskatchewan. Mary Simon visited the legislature, meeting with Premier Moe and other dignitaries. She also made a stop at the RCMP depot. Simon is Canada's first Indigenous Governor General. Simon was sworn in July of 2021. Moving out for the first time is exciting, and for many, it can also create anxiety. For one Regina man, moving out is even more daunting because he has cerebral palsy. 30-year-old Dylan Iris only has use of one hand, has poor vision, and uses a motorized wheelchair. But he says it's been fun learning to rely on himself.
I look around and I think I'll turn on the TV and, watch WrestleMania or something, and I think life doesn't get much better than this.
Iris says his parents are very supportive of his decision to move out on his own, even though they worry about him. But he says it's a great learning opportunity for him, and he's teaching himself to cook and adapting to every new challenge that comes his way. And that's the news this hour from CBC Saskatchewan.
Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Leisha.
That is the CBC's Laura Sharpaletti. Let's go now to Ethan Williams, who has today's weather forecast. Hey, Ethan.
Hey, Alicia. And man, we had a really beautiful weekend in many parts of the province. The sun coming out, the temperatures warming up. The snow melting away as well in many regions too. But now a bit of a return to some unsettled conditions. This time we're talking rain, and hey, we need it, so we will take it. We have a low pressure system that's moving through the province and into Manitoba now, and that is what is bringing these rain showers. Current radar showing that we have pop-up showers kind of all over the south and central region of the province. Regina, of course, we've just seen some rain showers moving through a little bit earlier here, and still getting some bits of rain even at this moment. We still have those showers moving to the southeast of the city as well. And then kind of through the rest of south and central, you get clearing the further north you go. So places like Prince Albert and the Lloydminster area up toward Meadow Lake, that's where we're seeing partly to mostly cloudy or sunny skies rather today, while the rest of south and central stays mostly cloudy with occasional showers kind of here and there. The other thing that this system is bringing through is quite a bit of wind as well, especially in the south. Regina, Estevan, Weyburn, Moose Jaw, Swift Current. At times, we have seen gusts near or over 70 kilometers an hour already this morning, and we can expect that continuing into the afternoon. Those should start to taper off, though, through the late afternoon or early evening hours tonight. Temperatures kind of ranging in that 10 to 15 degree range today. Regina in the south, where we're seeing those showers moving through, we're expecting highs at or around 10 degrees. Saskatoon and central Saskatchewan with those clearer skies, closer to 15. And then as you get into northern Saskatchewan, we're seeing mostly sunny conditions there. The system really not impacting you, and those highs near 15. Quite a pleasant day today in the north. But after this, Leisha, after this system kind of moves away, south and central, we're looking dry for the rest of the week. And in kind of addition to that, we're seeing temperatures beginning to warm up near 20-degree temperatures or even over that for the middle of the work week. And in kind of accordance with that as well, we're still going to be seeing the winds gusty at times. So that combination of things Gusty winds, warming temperatures, very dry conditions has led Environment Canada to put out a special kind of message on their social media channels this morning saying that increases the risk of grass fires in South and Central. Of course, we already heard in the news about the fire at Regina Beach over the weekend, and that kind of shows just how quickly these things can get out of control. So if you have any controlled burns, if you're doing any fires in an area where there isn't a fire ban, take extra precautions, of course, or just kind of avoid it altogether if you can. And there is, of course, a fire ban list on the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency's website. So if you just search fire bans Saskatchewan into Google or any kind of web browser, you'll be able to see those. And you're going to need to pay attention to them this week for sure, Leisha, with those conditions.
Okay, I appreciate that, Ethan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is the CBC's Ethan Williams. Right now in Saskatoon, it's 11 degrees. Regina, you are sitting at 5.
You're listening to Blue Sky. We're coming to you from the traditional territories of the Dene, Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis. Here's your host, Leisha Grabinski.
Well, it is Earth Day, so what better time would there be to take stock of our blue bins? A lot of us do our best to throw what we can in there, but the problem is it's a little out of sight, out of mind.
Every time I put something in the blue bin, I think I'm making a better choice, but then I wonder, where is this actually going?
So that is the question we will tackle today. And if you have questions, we have a few people who hopefully can answer them. We have Kevin Acton, the Director of Operations for Sarcan Recycling, joining us, and Felicia Johnson, COO of BN Steel and Metals. So you can call us with those recycling questions at 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Want to help me pull out the recycling? It's recycling day on my street, so I'm pulling my cart into my alley here in Saskatoon. All the blue bins are filled to the brim with aluminum cans, plastic food containers, boxes are poking out. The truck will come by in the next few hours, and then I start filling it up again and again and again and again.
My name is Darla Hobday. I live in Gravelburg. Our local town dump has closed recently, and so it's just caused me to think a little bit more about where our waste goes. Every time I put something in the blue bin, I think I'm making a better choice, but then I wonder, where is this actually going? Is it completing the cycle? Is it going to get turned into new bottles and cans? Or is it ending up in a landfill somewhere also? Do they want my little shreds of papers from my kids' crafts, or is that just garbage? If I don't wash out this tuna can enough, is it just going to end up in the garbage? Does that cause them more work? Where do these things go? Because sometimes you put it in the blue bin and then you just forget about it.
What a big, important question, Darla. This is Good Questions Saskatchewan. We'll focus on your blue bin today, and hopefully it helps all of our blue bins and the planet. So, Darla, your recycling is picked up and hauled to a material recovery facility in one of the bigger centers. Gravelburg's goes to Moose Jaw, then over to Crown Shred Recycling in Regina.
Things change throughout seasons also. Right now, we're seeing a lot of people doing spring cleaning.
Picture a giant warehouse with conveyor belts. People are sorting through the items to group things together. Milk jugs with milk jugs, cardboard with cardboard, that sort of thing. They also take out stuff that's not meant to be there.
You see a lot of the waste that's coming through. Your first diaper, first piece of pizza. Keep watching, you're going to see more. Running shoe.
Pizza, diapers, running shoes. Yeah, you heard that right. I took a tour a few years ago with Dale Schmidt from Loris in Saskatoon, and it was eye-opening.
Every few minutes you can
He told me the biggest problem we face is people throwing the wrong things in the blue bins.
So what happens is, once this gets up here to this area, it's called pre-sort. So these guys here are going to try to take out any garbage, plastic film if they can capture it. The line does move fairly fast. Things like ropes, extension cords, lights, Christmas lights, all that stuff will end up jamming our line. So this is a very important station. Everyone's going to pick this stuff up, and what they do is they just throw it down to the ground, and later we bale it and put it in the waste. We have some styrofoam, coat hangers, some black trays, material that is already bagged. If it's in a bag, it's really hard for our employees to rip it open and dump it out on the line. And then anything that is in a black bag, 99% of the time is garbage. So we've gotten to the point where they automatically just throw it in the garbage. So if you are putting your recyclables in a black bag and putting them in your cart, chances are they're going in the garbage.
And when you see things like a coat hanger or the crinkly wrap, I mean, what kind of an impact does that have on the job that you're trying to accomplish here?
So in order for us to continue to have good markets for recycling, we have to be able to offer a clean product. Things like the smaller plastic film, stuff that will float through the system, it's really hard for people to grab. So we put it in, it ends up getting into the paper, and then it contaminates the paper, and it's a lot harder to market. Things like coat hangers, especially wire coat hangers, they get caught in the line, and they will actually jam the line up. So then we have to stop, clean out the system, and restart.
Has this impacted how you feel about your own consumption habits working in a place like this, and about society's consumption habits?
It does. Seeing it every day, you almost wonder, why do they have that extra packaging? There's no point to it. So I always try when I go to the market, using reusable bags, making that choices ahead of time so that when you're at the store, you're not ending up with, 3 oranges wrapped in containers that shouldn't be, things like that. So,
Because this is eye-opening.
it is. Everyone thinks that, out of sight, out of mind, they'll deal with it. But they have to understand that there is people that deal with this every day. And we get a lot of things that, for some reason, people think used diapers are recyclable. And every day on the line, every few minutes, you can see a diaper come past.
Every few minutes?
Every few minutes, yes.
That's disgusting. Dirty diapers in our recycling. Gross, also costly. It sometimes means perfectly good recyclables end up at the landfill because it's mixed in with all that other junk. Like diapers! Think about that. I spoke to Dale again on the phone a few days ago, and he says, on average, 15 to 20% of recycling that arrives here is contaminated. The stuff that is clean is transported to buyers in Canada, primarily in Ontario. But he says it's not uncommon for recycling to be shipped overseas. Darla, I asked Crown Shred where your material goes. 40 to 50% of the items go to the US. 5% stays in Canada. Why? Because it's cheaper to move goods to Chicago than to Ontario. The remainder is shipped overseas to Indonesia, Malaysia, China, and India. Crown Shred says it feels confident that 80% of its material is being recycled. But still, it's a lot of stuff.
Hi, I'm Joanne Fedek, and I'm the Executive Director of the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council.
Joanne is an expert on sending as little as possible to the landfill, Darla. Here's what I've learned from her. The first step is to know what your community recycling program accepts. What they take in Gravelbourg could be different than what they take in Saskatoon. Second, keep it clean. For example, that tuna can you were asking about, wash it out. Otherwise, it will be tossed in the trash. So let's say you and I are putting all the right things in our blue bins. Then what? I asked Joanne.
The answer always starts with, it depends. Recycling is like a lot of other industries in that the end product is commodities, basically, and then those commodities are used by companies to create new things. So it depends on where you are in the province, who your recycling collector is, who they provide their materials to, and then those materials are typically baled or accumulated in some way, and then the bales are sold, and it depends on who they sell the bales to. And it depends on if there's a market for the things that are created by the people who they sell the bales to. So there's just so many variables.
So, Darla, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where your recycling is going. Someone has to want to buy it. There are some things that we know for sure. Joanne says Sarcan, for example, a local recycling company, has a contract with a company in Kentucky that turns old aluminum cans into new ones. Plastic is a bit trickier to trace. Joanne feels confident that milk jugs are being recycled. There is a growing market to recycle things like yogurt and sour cream containers, but Joanne says it's nearly impossible to know if everything you're throwing in your blue bin is actually being recycled. So the bigger question might be this, Darla. Is it up to you to figure out this whole recycling thing, or is it up to the companies who make the packaging? Chelsea Lindsley is with the Center for Climate Integrity, and they recently released a report called The Fraud of Plastic Recycling.
So we have been told, that plastic is recyclable, that we can recycle it again and again, although we know now that that really is not true. Plastic, when it can be recycled, can really only be recycled one time because it loses its quality as it's recycled. We've been told that it's our responsibility to make sure that plastic is getting recycled. So we've been told that the failure of recycling is really on us because we're not doing a good enough job to put it in the bin or to collect it. But we know now that that really isn't the case. The problem is inherent to the material.
So how big of a plastic problem do we have right now in 2024? What problems, and I know that's a huge question, but what problems is plastic causing us today?
There are a number of problems with plastic. So it is a material that once it's in the environment, it does not break down. So it persists and it will break down into smaller and smaller particles known as microplastics. Microplastics are being found everywhere. They've been found in clouds. They've been found obviously in the ocean. They've been found throughout our bodies, in our bloodstream, in mother's breast milk. We have this problem that plastic, is leaking into the environment because we can't adequately manage it with our waste management systems. And then once it's in the environment, it's breaking down and really infiltrating every aspect of the earth and human existence.
What's the solution here? We got this very specific question from an individual who lives in rural Saskatchewan, here in Canada. And I think she's asking this question because she wants to do her part. But what do you see as the solution here, both on an individual level, but obviously also on a larger scale and holding companies accountable?
So one thing I like to tell folks is that you have been told that this is your responsibility. And I completely sympathize with the desire to try and do my part. We all do. But really, this is a systemic problem that requires a systemic solution. The solutions that are out there are very achievable. We say the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle, and we say them in that order because that is the order that we should be prioritizing our waste management of plastic waste. So we should be first focusing on reducing plastic wherever we can. So reducing the amount of plastic that is produced in the first place, especially unnecessary single-use plastic products. We all know, I opened my bread the other day and it was a plastic bag of bread. And then the bread inside the bag, the plastic bag was wrapped in plastic. So there's so many examples of unnecessary plastic packaging that we can reduce. Then we want reuse and refill systems as sort of the second line of defense. And then recycling is sort of the last line of defense that we should be focused on.
Back in our province, Joanne says the provincial government is working to make sure items are recyclable, and the company that produces the packaging needs to also foot the bill for that recycling.
It's a concept called extended producer responsibility. And the philosophy is that if you put it into the marketplace, you should be responsible for it all the way through the end of its life and beyond. Because what's happening otherwise is that things get thrown into the marketplace and municipalities end up holding the bag Like, why did you make this product in this package? I can't do anything with this. Oh, sorry, maybe you'll have to find something to do with it, municipality. Well, no, why didn't you just design the package so that I didn't need to handle it? Thank you very much.
Right. In the meantime, the best we can do is reduce, reuse, recycle in that order.
I have a friend who was trying to live what they would call a waste-free life and went to great lengths to try and do this. And their line was, oh, I never recycle. But what they meant by that was that they were able to do reduction and reuse and buying local and all those things so that there was hardly ever anything to recycle. It's somewhere for us to look, to motivate us to say, not I never recycle, I throw everything away, but I never recycle because I don't have anything to recycle.
So, Darla, that is a lot to take in, but I've got one more hot tip for you from Joanne. You asked, does the blue bin want all your kids' tiny paper scraps? Here's the answer. If the paper doesn't have tape, glue, or glitter on it, it could be put into a clear plastic bag. As long as it's easy to see what's in the bag, it's okay. So while I tidy up this latest craft at my house, Darla, tell us what you think about all of this.
Oh, so many things. The reminder about recycling being, should be the final R, kind of renews my conviction that, not just reduce and reuse, but repair and repurpose. And I would like to see more of the refill, but I think that's kind of an option in the city, but not so much here.
Darla, you're right. Maybe it should be the 6 R's. Reduce, reuse, repair, repurpose, refill, recycle. Now, I want to leave you with a message from a few kids at a nature camp just outside of Saskatoon, because really, the 3 R's are for them.
Be kind to nature, because then if there's no water, the water would become toxic. Water.
The water would become toxic.
Yeah. Then I can go swimming, I'll cry. Don't pull leaves off trees.
Why not?
The trees would die. I like my big playground. Always take care of my big playground. Because if you don't take care of the planet, you won't have all the things that you need to live.
There you go. You can find that episode of Good Questions Saskatchewan on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us. That way you'll know when a new episode drops. And tell a friend. It's one small action you can take for Earth Day so we can all maybe recycle a bit better. Now, we're doing pretty well in Saskatchewan. Our province boasts one of the highest return rates for beverage containers in the country, and that is in part due to Sarcan. 95% of the population has a Sarcan depot within 50 kilometers of their home. There are 73 locations all over this province, and there are more than 900 employees. So you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in the province that knows as much about recycling as our guest today. Kevin Acton is the Director of Operations for Sarcan Recycling. So if you have questions about where the things collected here in Saskatchewan go, you can give us a call and talk directly with Kevin. That's 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Now, we've reached Kevin Acton in Weyburn today. Kevin, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Welcome to Blue Sky and happy Earth Day.
Thanks. Yeah, happy Earth Day for sure.
It's a great day to be talking about this stuff, and I understand that you've been at Sarcan since the very beginning. So what is it about recycling that excites you?
I think it's I just think it's a good part of what we should be. It's part of our lives. I mean, the containers are there, the materials are there, toxic materials, that are being prevented from going into landfills. So it's definitely an alternative to landfilling. And it's also, there's other parts of it as well. The economic benefit to the province and to the people of Saskatchewan by bringing the containers back to get their deposits back on them, as well as the employment opportunities that have been created around the province. So Sarcan is kind of a combination of those three things: the environment, the employment, and the economic benefits. So
We're going to talk so much about the environmental initiatives that and where people's stuff ends up because of Sarcan. But do you want to just take 30 seconds and expand a bit more on employment before we get to our news headlines? Because that is a really important piece of what Sarcan is. So what is unique about the employment opportunities at Sarcan?
Yeah, sure. Over the years, and part of our original mandate when Sarcan was started in the late '80s was to create employment opportunities for individuals experiencing disability, and we've been able to make that part of our ongoing sort of mandate and goal of our company and one of our key visions, and that is really what's made us into the recycling program that we are in Saskatchewan and the company that we are. Our employees across the province are by far the greatest environmental champions in their communities, and it doesn't matter what town you go to, whether it's Gravelburg or Gull Lake or all over the province where we have depots. The guys and gals that work in those depots are really great environmental leaders and champions. So that's what makes us so successful.
Well, we're so happy to have you with us for the next half an hour. And like I said, people can call in with some of their questions, either about where items are going, or even if you are curious about what Sarcan accepts, we'll take your calls, 1-800-716-2221, or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Let's just take a moment, though, to check in with Laura Sharpaletti, who has today's news headlines. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Alicia. Well, here's what's coming up in your 1 o'clock news right here on CBC Radio 1. Regina's largest indoor market is having to close its doors. The Centennial Market has been housed in the former Sears clearance building for almost 8 years now, but now the building has been deemed unsafe, and vendors are in need of another building. I'll have that story at the top of the hour. And a Saskatoon man already in custody and charged with voyeurism is now facing new charges. Kyle Hamluck is behind bars accused of voyeurism, intimidation, and criminal harassment. I'll have those stories and more coming up just after Blue Sky.
Laura, thank you.
Thanks, Leisha.
That is the CBC's Laura Sharpaletti. I'm speaking today with Kevin Acton, who is Director of Operations for Sarcan Recycling. It is Earth Day, and so we're tracing the contents not only of our blue bin, but the items that we drop off at a place like Sarcan. So, Kevin, how has Sarcan changed over the years?
Well, when we originally started in 1988, the only refillable or non-refillable container that was brought into the province for sale at that point was the aluminum can. And that was introduced in April of '88. Since then, over the years, there's been a number of different types of containers made out of different materials that have been, introduced into the marketplace. So as those containers come in, like plastic, aseptic packaging, which is your juice boxes, polycoat material, which is your milk cartons, milk jugs, all the different types of materials, glass. As they've been introduced into the marketplace in Saskatchewan, we began accepting those containers, and they've been added to our program. So now there's about 19 different sorts of materials that come into a depot on a daily basis.
And it goes beyond beverage containers, I think. We'll get to that.
Right.
But let's focus just for a moment a bit more on aluminum cans. I mentioned in the podcast episode there about a recycling company in Kentucky that takes our aluminum cans. What is the process for recycling aluminum cans? My understanding is that if there's a pretty good guarantee that your pop cans are going to get recycled. It's an easy item to recycle. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's probably one of the purest closed loop recycling or circular, economy type containers that are out there. Because when you buy a can at a store or a gas station, wherever it may be, when you bring that can back to us at Sarcan, it takes about 60 days for it to be collected by us, baled. We ship semi-loads of baled cans, which have over 1 million cans on those loads. We ship one of those about every other day down to Kentucky to a really large aluminum smelter. And in order for them to recycle those aluminum cans, they're all pure aluminum, but they heat them up, they melt them, and they pour them back into giant ingots that are then rolled to a rolling mill, and they roll it back into really, really super thin aluminum sheeting again that they punch back into can stock. That entire cycle takes about 60 days from the time you bring a can into it when you can be drinking from a can that was made from the can that you brought to us. So it's really an efficient process. It saves about 2,000 times less energy used to recycle an aluminum can than it is to make one from raw bauxite ore.
So, does the material deteriorate over time, or can you recycle aluminum cans over and over and over again? Because I think that's the goal,
No.
right? Is to be able to.
Yeah, they can be recycled over and over again. So
And why are we sending them down to the States? Is there any option for doing this in Canada? What would be the thinking behind shipping them down to the States?
there's three primary smelters of aluminum in the North American continent, and one is in Kentucky, one is in Tennessee, and the other one is in Alabama, just south of there. And those are kind of the big three, and that's where all of the material from North America goes to. They process our annual volume in about 2 days. So
wow.
we just it's and they process Alberta's annual volume in about 8 days, and so if you take all of Canada's aluminum cans together, I think it's about a 2-week period, and so that these things they're just giant facilities, and they process a massive amount of material.
Wow. So, what about plastic milk jugs? We go through a lot of those in my house, and I do worry about bringing those in weekly. We get the big 4-liter ones. What's happening to them if they're dropped off at Sarcan?
Yeah, obviously there's a 25-cent deposit on them, so bring them to any Sarcan depot in the province. They get, we collect them, we sort them. It's called natural high density polyethylene, which is number 2. That's what the milk jug is made out of, and it hasn't been colored or dyed. It's still in its original form. So that material can be used for a number of different applications. A lot of it is used in furniture, picnic tables, benches. One of the big uses for it, the puckboard in hockey rinks is made from high density polyethylene. So when your kids are out playing, either lacrosse or hockey or whatever, the white plastic boards are on the exteriors of the rinks. Those are made from high density. A lot of different materials are made from it. It's a very flexible plastic, and it can be recycled and made into a lot of different materials. So we ship ours to Vancouver, and the company there, they pelletize it and they flake it into small pieces, and then it's made back into pellets that can be injected and made into new plastic products.
What's happening to juice boxes?
Juice boxes currently are going to a company in Ohio, and they shred the material and they make it into a wallboard, and they use it in agricultural barns, facilities, roofing materials. They make about 4 different types of wallboard with it. It sort of looks like drywall, but it's made out of recycled juice boxes. So there's little bits of plastic in there. There's a bit of aluminum there. There's 7 layers in a juice box. There's 7 layers of material. So they take that and they grind it up and they press it with hydraulic presses and put a finishing coat on it and make wallboard out of it.
So interesting. Now, you have to tell me about glass, and you may need to update me on my information, but I understand that Sarcan had started a pilot, at least here in Saskatoon. The city was discouraging people from putting glass in their blue bins just because of the risk of it breaking, and so Sarcan ended up taking that on. So tell us what is the latest when it comes to glass recycling through Sarcan?
Yeah, first, there's a couple parts of that, so we'll sort of touch on both. But the beverage glass we've been taking since 1992, and that's anything that ready-to-consume beverage glass bottle, which could be anything from a juice bottle to a wine bottle or whatever. That glass we separate by color at the depots, and so all the clear glass goes into one bin, and all the brown, green, other blue glass goes into a separate bin. So the clear glass, we're really fortunate in Saskatchewan. We have a company called Potters in Moose Jaw. And what they do is they make glass beads, and they take all of our glass that we collect all over the province, which is about 18 million pounds a year of material of glass bottles. And they crush it really fine. And when you heat glass up to a melting point in a giant tower, it automatically turns into a sphere when it melts. And so it falls through the heated zone in that tower. And when it comes out the bottom, it's cool enough that they can size it all. Those little spheres are little tiny glass marbles that we call them, or beads. Those are used in Saskatchewan roads and municipalities all over the province. So the lines at night when you're driving your car or on the signs and the road signs, they're filled with reflective glass beads. That's what makes the lights shine, or the lines shine on the highways at night. So we annually, Potters sells a lot of glass feeds to Saskatchewan highways. They're painting, they sell them to the cities and the municipalities all over the province, as well as other provinces as well. So we're fortunate that we actually have a glass processor in Saskatchewan. So that's a cool thing. And then the colored glass goes to a company in Alberta. They crush it, and then it goes to a fiberglass insulation company in Edmonton, and they make fiberglass insulation out of it, which is what you use to insulate your home and obviously save energy and stuff like that.
So you would definitely, I'm assuming, encourage people to take their glass, whether or not you're getting a deposit back. Like I'm thinking pickle jars and stuff, right? Are you still encouraging people to take those to Sarcan and better off keeping them out of the blue bins?
The glass in the blue bin creates a problem. That Dale talked about contamination earlier, in the Loris lines, and I know the other MRFs are like that too. Because what happens when you dump glass in a blue bin, quite often it'll break, and then it'll contaminate other material. It'll stick in with other materials. Safety-wise, you've got broken glass, things like that. So we entered into a pilot project with the City of Saskatoon, City of Regina in 2019. We started collecting household glass at the depots, and the cities encourage that process, and they communicate that process through their information lines to have people bring the material to Sarcan. So we take it. There's no deposit return on the pickle jar, but we will take it and we will recycle it the same way we do with the glass bottles. So what we're trying to do is divert that material. Last year we took about 880,000 pounds of household glass through about half of our depots in the province. We have agreements in about half the depots in the province with municipalities right now.
There are 73 depots in Sarcan depots in Saskatchewan. So why is it important to have so many?
I think a lot of it has to do with just, obviously we're very much an urban rural split province. And so that was a big reason of when the original system was started. Excuse me, in 1988, there was 32 original depots. And then it became a convenience thing. Convenience is a really important piece. If you're going to be recycling something, it has to be convenient for people. And so that's why the depot structure and the network was designed with sort of the radius, a 50-kilometer radius, as being sort of an objective when we let out all the different communities. We recently, a few years ago, we opened a depot in Buffalo Narrows, so we increased the container returns coming from that corner of the northwest of the province. We have some big depots in Larange and Prince Albert, Nipawin, so we can pull containers from the north. We're still looking at, different things up there that we can do to provide additional collection. But it's really about just making it convenient for people. That's the reason the network is there.
I obviously have so many questions, but I should put out the numbers because others can call us with questions too. 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Before I start asking you, Kevin, about items that are not beverage containers, I want to just share this email from Dan, who writes, I see many people break off the pull-up tabs on beverage containers and then donate the tabs to a cause. Please explain the advantage of any of breaking off these tabs. Who might accept these tabs? And Dan thanks us in advance for the question, or for getting an answer to the question. Do you know the answer to that? I'm not sure what he's talking about. Break off the pull-up tabs on beverage containers. Do you know what Dan's referring to, Kevin?
Yeah, on an aluminum can, the little tab that you pull to open the container up.
Yeah.
If you wiggle it back and forth a couple times, it will come off. So from our perspective at Sarcan, the tab is made of aluminum as well, so it can stay in the can, no problem. When we bale the can, it gets baled with the can and it gets sent down for recycling. There are different groups over the years, there's been different fundraisers over the years where they will collect those aluminum tabs. And then what they do with them is, I believe, they sell them to a company like Felicia, B&N Metals, because aluminum is still scrap aluminum. I don't know exactly what happens to the tabs, but they use them as a fundraiser. And my understanding is that they sell the tabs for scrap. And so, because they add up, I mean, eventually you will, if you add all the tabs, they would equate to a certain amount of pounds of aluminum. So.
Okay, well, why don't we bring Felicia into the conversation? I'm going to bounce around a bit. Kevin, I've got more questions for you, so don't go anywhere. But let's go to Felicia Johnson, who is the CEO of BN Steel and Metals. You'd probably know them in Saskatoon. It's the place where you can see the big T-Rex made out of scrap metal. But BN Steel and Metals also operates operates in Prince Albert and North Battleford. The company does pay money for scrap metal and will also take your old appliances that you don't know what to do with for free. And so, Felicia, welcome to Blue Sky and happy Earth Day.
Thank you. Happy Earth Day to you too.
So do you take those tabs?
We do. I don't see the benefit of pulling them off the cans, so I would send the whole can to
Sarcan
to get recycled. So, but I guess that was something that started years ago, and it was just a thing, so they stuck with it.
But it does speak to the fact that you are able to do quite a bit with BN Steel and Metals. So just give people a sense of what it is your company does.
So we recycle all metal. Anything, if you look around your house, you will find, plumbing, pipe, electrical wires. Somebody spoke to the coat hangers. We take the metal coat hangers. We do soffit, fascia, metal siding, swing sets, trampolines, like barbecues, appliances from like the big fridges, freezers to like microwave and toasters. We take electronics like TVs, radios, cell phones. Everything. We take cars, full cars. We take parts of cars, rims, anything. And it's all a free drop off, or you get paid for your material.
Wow. Okay. So people just bring that stuff to you. What happens though if they end up taking it to the dump? Do you guys sometimes get stuff from the dump that then is brought over to you for recycling? How does that work?
Yeah, we will get it from the dump. So it's really just skipping a step. If you bring it to the dump, you actually have to pay to bring it to the dump. Whereas we take it and we don't charge you like for a fridge. They would have to go through it and make sure the Freon is removed. And we do that for free. We do that with our program.
And you said there are some items that some of the metal you accept people might be surprised are worth money?
Yeah. So like, the Christmas lights that they were talking about, the old Christmas lights, we will recycle those. We will pay you for them. Old extension cords, a lot of the copper from your house, old copper lines, and anything pretty much that is metal, we will pay for.
So some of that stuff is valuable. I'm actually curious about how you make sure that some of that stuff isn't stolen. I'm thinking in particular about catalytic converters.
Yes. So that's a good question. That is something that comes up, and we do have a bylaw that we do have to take the customer's information, and then we have that on file if there is issues.
And then what do you do with the stuff that's brought to you? What happens to it?
So everything gets sorted and processed, and then it is shipped to smelters. And Kevin spoke to that they will smelt it into a form that they can remake the material. So whatever you bring in, if it's brass, they'll smelt it and then make it into ingots and create that material again.
Interesting. Okay, we've got a number of people emailing and we've got a caller on the line. So why don't we go to Ed in Martinsville? Ed, welcome to Blue Sky.
Morning. Good afternoon. Hi.
Hi. What's your question?
And it's about spray cans. I'm not talking about metal spray. I'm not talking about spray paint cans for Sarcan. I'm talking about just spray cans in general with compressed air, WD-40, applications like that. It turns out a lot of places don't take spray cans for recycling.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think that's a household hazardous waste drop-off thing in Saskatoon. But, Kevin is so knowledgeable about this stuff. Kevin, do you have any idea what someone would do with those types of spray cans?
Yeah, a lot of it would depend on what the contents are. The aerosol paint cans, the spray paint cans, we take through the product care program at the Sarcan depots. But if it was some kind of chemical insecticide, like insect killer or something like that, then that should go to household hazardous waste collection day. The only exception to that they wouldn't take would be like an aerosol can in your kitchen, like vegetable oil, cooking spray or something like that. Currently, that material, I'm not sure if there's a home for that. I don't know, Felicia, if you guys would take that at BNN or not, whether you would take just like a regular regular aerosol food container kind of thing?
Yeah, Felicia, would you?
Yeah, some of those items we do take, and like propane tanks, we do take those. I know there's very little places you can bring those, but we do take them.
Yeah.
The great question, Ed. Thank you for that. And I will share one other resource for folks, because something I use a lot is the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council's website. You can often put in your jurisdiction, because it all depends on where you live. So Ed, at least you're in Martinsville and you're close to Saskatoon, but other locations may have, it might be different, right? So I often will go onto the Waste Reduction Council's website. I'll type in what I have, and usually they can point me in the right direction. If it's an item for household hazardous waste, if I can put it in my blue bin, that sort of thing. So that might be another resource. Let's go to another caller. So Mike in Saskatoon is on the line. Hi, Mike.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it. I think one of the reasons why that Sarcan program is so successful is because of the deposit that people put on their bottles. And, so it compels them to collect them and bring them back to get the money.
It's such a good point, Mike.
I just, how successful do you think it would be? Let's compare it to Manitoba. I hear that they don't give you money back, or you don't pay a deposit. How successful are they at, how many aluminum cans are just lying in the ditches or wherever in people's garbage? So, I guess you could roll that over and say, well, why can't we do that with all the materials we want to get back, put a deposit on it? And just a thought.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Mike, thank you. Kevin, I'll put that to you, because the model that you're working with, obviously it's brought success. And so what are your thoughts on what Mike brought up there?
Yeah, the deposit return system, and I think there's 9 provinces currently and territories in Canada that have a deposit return system. The return rates are definitely higher than they are in the ones without a deposit system. Our return rate last year in Saskatchewan was 84% of everything that was sold came back to a Sarcan depot for a deposit refund. And that was over 500 million beverage containers in a province of like 1.1 or 1.2 million people. We're not that big of a place, but people do a really good job here of recycling. So it's pretty incredible when you look at it that way. It works. And, our return, 84%, we'd like it to be higher, but it's still a significant, percentage of the material that's coming back in to be recycled.
So interesting. Judy sent us an email. Judy writes, does the paper label have to be completely removed on a glass jar or bottle in order for it to be acceptable for recycling? There is no recycle sign on most plastic lids. Can those plastic lids on bottles be recycled, or is that garbage? Kevin, I think that's a good question for you.
Sure. As far as glass bottles, the paper does not have to be removed from the jar or the bottle. So you don't have to wash the glass. We appreciate if the interior contents are rinsed out and given a quick rinse, but the exterior, no. Whatever label is on it is fine. In respect to the lids, we ask our customers to have the lids removed from the plastic, because when they bring the containers to us, at all of our depots, we flatten the plastic before we ship it to our processing plants in Saskatoon and Regina. And the reason for that is to take the air out of it and increase our transportation efficiencies, lower our greenhouse gas emissions. So the lids are recyclable. You can put them in a little Ziploc bag, bring them with you to the depot. There's bins at all the depots to collect the lids. They're recyclable. We ship semi-loads of lids every year for recycling.
I'm going to share another email from Gord, who writes, your website, and this is for you, Kevin, your website indicates that you can't get a refund for more than $75 per week. Is this accurate? Why, I wonder, because if I have $150 worth of recycling, I would have to make 2 trips, spending twice as much gas, and consequently would be twice as damaging to the environment than if I took just 1 trip. It seems counterintuitive. Any comments? Kevin, I'll let you answer that.
Sure. There's a couple parts to that. If you're a Saskatchewan resident, you live in Saskatchewan, you can arrange, and especially if you're in rural Saskatchewan, you can arrange to drop off over $75. The $75 limit is there it was originally put in place to limit returns, mostly from our eastern side, which would be Manitoba. So because the average household doesn't consume more than 750 containers a week. Some might, but the average one doesn't. So that's why that weekly container limit was put in place, and that was done a number of years ago to limit any kind of material coming in. And that was legislation has been passed to make that illegal now. So it's illegal to import containers into Saskatchewan for return. But we still have it in place. So, but if you have a larger order than that, talk to the depot supervisor when you roll into whatever location you are, and they should be able to make arrangements with them.
Okay, Kevin, thank you. Got an email from Dan and Felicia. This one might be for you. So Dan writes, what's the best thing to do with old pots and pans? There's all kinds of different metal in there. Felicia, would you take?
We take the bowl, we take the cutlery, pots and pans, anything metal, and then even if it's like you talked about the aluminum cans and that there would be paper on them, we take it all. It goes through our big shredder. It just crushes everything, and then we have a whole bunch of machines that sort everything. So the garbage is sorted from the material, and it leaves a little bit of waste because it is garbage, but most of it gets recycled. So we will take all of it.
Okay, here's another email from Ken, and I don't know whether or not either of you can really, if you're comfortable answering the question that he poses, but it's at least something for all of us to contemplate. So Ken writes, new fridges and new furnaces usually last only 7 to 10 years, but I'm supposed to recycle my empty toilet paper roll. Our old fridge and stove at the cottage are 74 years old. We are attacking the problem through the wrong lens. Do we need legislation to force manufacturers to make better quality products? So I'll give you both the opportunity because I do think this is part of a larger conversation. It's so interesting hearing what you take and what you're able to turn it into. I think the larger question is what is still left? We haven't talked about sour cream containers or those clamshell, the things that strawberries come in, that sort of thing. But I'm wondering if either of you have thoughts on just how well things are made. Felicia, do you want to talk about that since you are the one taking old fridges and furnaces? Do you see more and more as the years go on because they aren't lasting as long? Felicia?
For me, I don't think we see a lot, but we don't just see an increase because of, I guess, old appliances. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah.
Okay. It's not just old appliances, it's people get new ones and they don't know what to do with their old ones. So we get a lot of stuff that still works, and we will resell some of that stuff, but it's I think the world we're living in. So
yeah. Kevin, what are your thoughts on that? Just kind of the bigger questions, thinking about the things how things are made they're maybe not lasting as long, and just all the things that Sarcan can't take at this point.
Yeah, and there's a number of things that, some countries, a lot of the European countries especially, have looked at extended producer responsibility. I think Joanne touched on that earlier in the Blue Sky portion.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make the manufacturer responsible for the end of life of that unit, then theoretically they should try to make a better product that will last longer, so that they don't have to then take care of it in a shorter period of time. And I think some of that regulation or some of the requirements for that are things that that need to be looked at in other parts of the world as well. But I think that's some of the reason that some of the appliances from Europe are significantly higher cost than some of the ones that are made perhaps in North America or Central America, South America kind of things. So I think there are things shifting that way. I just think we're just not there. We're not seeing it yet in Saskatchewan. I think it's something that we'll see down the road as we move forward.
This has been so great to have both of you. Kevin, I just want to give you, an extra 20 seconds. Is there anything that people can take to Sarcan that we didn't touch on today? Did we talk about electronics? I think you'll take electronics sometimes, right?
Yep. BNN Salvage collects electronics on behalf of EPRA. We do as well. All of our depots around the province accept electronics. We accept paint through the product care program. We also accept all household batteries, less than 5 kilograms in size, rather rechargeable or single-use ones. So we take those back. Last year we had almost 100,000 pounds of, hazardous batteries returned to us that didn't go to landfill. So Those are all things that we accept at the depots. Some of the depots accept household glass, not all yet, but we're hoping that will change in the future. So yeah, bring your stuff to us, and we're there to take care of you and help you out.
Thank you so much. I've been speaking today with Kevin Acton, the Director of Operations with Sarcan Recycling, and also to Felicia Johnson, who's the COO of BN Steel and Metals. If you missed some of this, there was so much valuable information. We'll be posting this episode on YouTube. You can find it on the CBC Saskatchewan page. Also, Blue Sky is on CBC Listen, and this all kicked off with our new podcast, Good Questions Saskatchewan, on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.